and roller skating emporium in Millinocket, Maine. It was good. Now I thought, it says on the program, Down East Humor. And I thought I would perhaps, before we get going, tell you about what type of humor this is. Maine humor. It's not the kind of humor you're used to. It's not the kind of humor you see on TV, you know, where they tell a joke and then that, and they tell a joke. It's Maine humor. It's subtle. It's going to be over your head. But it's not that it's not funny. You just don't get it. That's all. Well, I want to say this. If during this few moments here, if I ask you a question, for instance, if I say, how many of you have been to Eastport, Maine, and had lobster? I don't care. I don't care. I'm like any performer or some politician. I don't care what the truth is. I just want to know that you're out there. You just say whatever you want to say if I ask you that, okay? That's all. Now, before I go on, by the way, how many of you have been to Eastport, Maine and had lobster? All right, well, people out there. Yeah, I brought a few ladies with me from Maine, actually. Yeah, the two ladies that really make a big difference in this community, and I'm going to have them come up and help me with a few birth and eye stories. So, I have to get my hat. All right? Come on up. Bert and I went down to the harbor to start up the Bluebird, which is our boat. And Bert went in to get the slickers, and I stepped into the cockpit of the Bluebird to get her started. It was cold, you can tell, and I couldn't get it started. So I advanced the spark a bit and had to give it a little more choke. And I tried again. I got the Bluebird started. And just at that time, a seagull defecated right on my shoulder.
Captain, that seagull has made an awful mess on your slicker. Stay right here and I will be right back with some toilet paper.
Madam, by the time you get back here with that toilet paper, that seagull will be a mile away.
Captain, it's very backwards here in Maine. You have such terrible roadside signs, and also the roads themselves. I see a sign that says, it's that way to Portland. And over here, there's a sign, another sign that says it's that way to Portland.
There you go.
Does it make any difference which way I go to Portland?
Not to me, it don't.
Captain, I hear there are more cows than people in Maine.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, we prefer them. A Boston lady, they come down prim and proper. Okay, we have a man up in Kennebunkport where we have the Bluebird, and his name is Virgil Bliss. And Virgil Bliss is a wonderful man and a hard worker, but he is the dirtiest man in all of Maine. He changes his shirt maybe once a year.
Hey, Virgie, how'd you ever get Hattie to marry you smelling that way?
Well, she married me because I proposed downwind.
Hey, Virgie, I hear you caught a skunk and have it tied up under your bed.
Yeah, well,
What are you going to do about the smell?
yeah, I have a skunk under my bed. What am I going to do about the smell? Well, he'll just have to get used to it.
Virgie, isn't Hattie getting a little heavy?
Well, she has been putting on a little tonnage lately. But you know, it's shade in the summer and warmth in the winter. There you go. Well, we decided to go to ladies, Suki, Darlene. We decided we take a trip to see a man named Gagnon up in northern Maine. But we decided we would go, but we get something to eat first. We went over to Moody's Diner. How many of you have ever been to Moody's Diner? That's a great place. Yeah. Moody's is a big orange sign, and they have gas, and they have on the sign it says, "Eat here, get gas." That was strange. We went in, and when we sat down for lunch, the owner of Moody's came out and said the lunch was going to be delayed for an hour because the cook was out feeding the pig. So Bert said, "I'm going to walk and see that. That's strange." And so we went out in the back, and there was that cook, and he had that pig on his shoulder, just like a baby. And that pig was eating apples off a tree. And Bert said to that cook, he said, "Doesn't it take a long time to feed a pig that way?" And that cook said to Bert, "Well, what's time to a pig?" Well, we got on the main turnpike, on the way to see Gagnon, and we were following a man who we know, and Camden Pierce in his Pranwell truck. And Camden was getting out of his truck every 10 miles and beating the side of it with a baseball bat. Well, when he stopped, we stopped, and the policeman stopped, and the policeman said to Camden, "Well, you weren't doing nothing, you weren't speeding, but why do you have to get out every 10 miles and hit the side of your truck with a baseball bat?" And Camden said, "Well, officer, I have a 1-ton truck here, and I have 3 tons of chickens inside, and I got to keep 2 tons in the air at all times." Well, we did get up there, and we got to see one of my favorite people. Okay. Aya, that means yes. Amen. Right? Oui, monsieur. Mademoiselles, I am Gagnon. I am world champion moose collier. When I'm only little baby, in my bassinet, in that little cabin in the Allagash, I was already champion moose collier. I let out a little baby whimper, "Ooh," and 2 bull moose come in the front door. Well, when I was older, the governor of Maine knows that I am the only man in Maine who can get all the moose together in one place. He wants to do a moose census. So I worry about these, but I climb up Mount Katahdin, the highest peak in Maine, and I give my moose holler. Ooh! And it bounced off Mount Cadillac, and then Mars Hill, and then I hear a great clatter of hoof, and a great much sand, and I worry and I climb because I don't want to get stomped to death. Well, I counted 240,000 moose, 40 Alaskan caribou, and a dog with a Hawaiian license plate. Oui, monsieur, I am Gagnon. I'm world champion moose collier. Some men from New York called me, and these sportsmen, to give my moose holler in New York. So I go to New York and I worry. I take out moose insurance before I get there. And I gave my moose holler to these sportsmen. Ooh! And it bounced off the Radio City, and it bounced off the Empire State Building, and then the doors of that room flew open, and I see ugly nose, mournful eyes, massive rack of an 8-foot bull moose, pawing the red carpet. Well, these men, these sportsmen, they hide and they run. And I just go, ooh, and the moose goes in the corner and like a baby. Well, I took him back to Maine on the train, and I noticed as I leave him in the woods, he was walked a little stiff-legged. And he had a little, I swear, a trickle of sawdust coming down from his ear. Sure enough, the next week I get a note from that sportsman with an article from the New York Times with the disappearance of the bull moose, the stuffed moose from the glass case at the Natural History Museum. Oui, monsieur, I am Gagnon, I am world champion, Moose Collier. And one more. Margaret Bunker always wanted to go to Maui. Always wanted to go to California. She'd never been out of Maine all her life. Well, she almost made it. She got as far as Kansas City and she died on the train. Well, we were very sad. We all loved Margaret Bunker. She was a quiet, self-effacing person. Well, we had the casket. We flew it back first class as fast as we could. It was August. And we took her up to the cemetery, and we just put her in that hole. And someone said, shouldn't we take one last look at Margaret before she goes down? She was such a wonderful lady. And we all said we'd do that. We opened the casket, and to our surprise, there was an admiral in there in full uniform. Well, we closed the casket, put her in the casket down in the ground, and it was sad to lose Margaret, but it would give us some measure of comfort to know that somewhere Margaret was having a 21-gun salute. So if you ever come down to Kennebunkport in Maine, you come down Main Street, and there's a beautiful Congregational church right on Main Street. A mile before you get to that church, you take a right, and you come on down to the harbor. And then if you get to the harbor, come to the bait shack and say hi to Bert Nye. Thank you.